Welcome to BBC Points West with Liz Beacon and David Garmston.
Our main story tonight, allegations of abuse. Wiltshire police gather evidence against Sir Edward Heath. One man claims he was raped as a boy.
The investigation into the former Prime Minister has put the country's smallest police force firmly in the spotlight.
The Chief Constable has launched a passionate defence of his force.
My officers and staff have done the right thing. They have been impeccable, they've been meticulous, and I'm incredibly proud of what they stand for.
Our other headlines tonight. A hospital admits it was at fault over the death of baby Ben. His parents will keep up their fight.
I think it's an apology 2.5 years too late. The fact that the failure to give the antibiotics contributing to his death, I think it's something that everybody's always known.
The class that came in 2 by 2, the Bristol school that's welcomed 5 sets of twins.
And victory from the jaws of defeat. It's speedway success for Swindon's Robins.
Hello, good evening. The national spotlight has been thrust on Wiltshire Police today as it finally published its report into Sir Edward Heath. 2 years ago, the force stood outside the late Prime Minister's former home in Salisbury and appealed for any victims of alleged abuse to come forward.
Their investigation has attracted much criticism, with some asking whether it should ever have been launched. Tonight we'll hear from the Chief Constable, but first our Home Affairs correspondent Charlotte Callan is in Salisbury. Charlotte.
This is Arundel's, Sir Edward Heath's former home from 1985 till 2005 when he died. It was 10 years later that Wiltshire Police launched Operation Conifer outside the gates here into allegations that he sexually abused children. Today we've been hearing more details about that report, including allegations that he raped an 11-year-old boy. This press conference signalled the end of what has been a long and costly investigation. For the first time, Wiltshire Police revealed details of 40 individuals who made allegations. The inquiry, codenamed Operation Conifer, the biggest ever carried out by one of the country's smallest forces. And today we heard that Sir Edward Heath was a suspect in cases including the rape of an 11-year-old boy.
The offences where he would have been interviewed under caution are: 1 allegation of rape of a male under 16, 3 allegations of indecent assault on a male under 16, 4 allegations of indecent assault on a male under 14, and 2 allegations of indecent assault on a male over 16.
Police forces have a duty to fully investigate all allegations of historical sexual abuse. Officers have probed right to the heart of the British establishment.
The Queen has asked me to form the next government.
Asking whether this man, Sir Edward Heath, Prime Minister between 1970 and 1974, sexually abused children. And did those in power help to cover it up? But the police say that is one question it's not down to them to answer.
The purpose of interviewing Sir Edward Heath under caution would have been to obtain his account in relation to the allegations that have been made against him. And no inference of guilt should be drawn by the decision to interview him.
This investigation has cost around £1.5 million, and some of the former Prime Minister's closest friends are unhappy with the way it's been conducted.
The argument that those of us who've been watching it is the ineptitude, the tactlessness, and the slight drawing attention to itself as it's going on about the whole thing has been deeply both unattractive and unfair.
I've spoken to members of Sir Edward Heath's security team who guarded him here at his home in Salisbury. They used this as their 24-hour security hut, and they've told me they think it's ludicrous that he could have committed any abuse while he was here. Inside you can see the CCTV cameras pointing at every aspect of the house. They also talk of the rear of the house that backs onto the river so no one could get in or out. But the report concludes there were times when the former Prime Minister was on his own. Sir Edward Heath is arguably one of the world's most powerful politicians. He has a memorial here on the floor of Salisbury Cathedral. His friends hoped he'd be remembered for his time as Prime Minister, but now they fear his legacy will be forever tainted.
And those friends who knew Sir Edward Heath well have leapt to his defence. The North Wiltshire MP James Gray dismissed the allegations as a lot of nonsense.
Now, he's going to ask Theresa May to commission another inquiry into the matter, this time led by a judge. Here's Robin Markwell.
Seeking to establish the facts concerning allegations of child abuse.
While Wiltshire police were setting out their findings in Swindon, Edward Heath's supporters were weighing every word at a golf club close by. They've always protested his innocence and dismissed the 7 allegations of abuse highlighted by the police today. Now they want a judge brought in to clear his name entirely.
Because there has been no assessment of the evidence. These are still just allegations. To have somebody look at the quality and the context and come to some sensible conclusions in an area where a lot of nonsense has been talked, I think that's what we need.
The police might have concluded they'd have brought the former Prime Minister in for questioning, but the local MP who's read their report insists there isn't a shred of evidence.
Well, the notion that he was carrying out these crimes is simply ludicrous. Throughout his entire life, he was certainly under scrutiny of the press. He had close protection officers, policemen, with him 24/7. He had private secretaries, he had staff of every kind watching over him. He couldn't drive a car, so he couldn't actually go off on his own and do these things. The notion that he was carrying out these terrible crimes without the people around him knowing about it, I think is just crazy.
The supporters of Ted Heath gathered here today have asked the government before for a judge-led inquiry and been told no by the Home Secretary. Now they're taking their case to the Prime Minister because they believe that is the only way to fully clear Ted Heath's name. Robin Markwell, BBC Points West in Highworth.
Well, the Chief Constable of Wiltshire, Mike Veal, has defended himself and his force against accusations that Operation Conifer was a fishing expedition fuelled in the aftermath of the Jimmy Savile scandal.
But where does it leave us tonight with so little detail released to the public about the substance of those allegations? I've been talking to Mr. Veal. In the eyes of the law tonight, is Sir Edward Heath an innocent man?
I have been very clear from the outset of this investigation that it's not the police to infer or conclude guilt. Innocence is absolutely a presumption in the British criminal justice.
So he is innocent?
As far as the British criminal justice system is concerned, Sir Edward Heath is an innocent man.
And yet you've been talking since day one about victims and survivors. Now that does confer some sort of guilt, doesn't it? As soon as you use that language.
I've been in the police service for 33 years, and victim is a well-known term that I've used for people coming forward to allege criminal offences.
Just help us, because you said in 7 cases there was enough to interview Sir Edward Heath under caution, either at his house, I guess, or here at the police station. Now, just how low is the bar to interview somebody under caution? What sort of level of evidence do you have to have before you can do that?
Well, the bar is very low, and many people who have been proven to be innocent are interviewed after caution.
I understand, but the bar there is for an interview is low, and the bar here for a conviction is very high, beyond reasonable doubt. So where were you on that scale?
We were obviously at a level where the information and evidence that we had reached a threshold where we were able to legitimately say Sir Edward Heath would be interviewed after caution. But you do raise an incredibly important point, because Sir Edward Heath could not rebut.
Well, what was the point of it then? What was the point of it? That's what your critics say.
Well, the point of it is actually very clear. Sir Edward Heath's death was only 10 years ago, or just over 10 years ago. There may well have been offenders who may well have been alive today. There may well have been safeguarding risks today. And actually, it is only right and proper when people come forward with allegations of the utmost seriousness. We listen and we respond in a positive way. And of course, Sir Edward Heath was one of the most influential and prominent, powerful people in the world at that time.
All right, he was a very powerful man. He was attacked by the IRA. All sorts of things went on during his time. And so he was under police guard. Did any of the security officers around him tell you that they had any suspicions?
These types of offences that are alleged very often happen in private. And so we have said in the report that some of his closest aides, some of his closest colleagues, didn't see any of those offences that are alleged to have taken place.
Wiltshire Police, of course, one of our local constabularies. A lot of people will be very fond of it. You're leading it at the moment. There's been a lot of pressure on you.
What keeps me going is my officers and staff have done the right thing. They have been impeccable, they've been meticulous, and I'm incredibly proud of what they stand for.
Chief Constable, thank you very much.
Well, let's return to Charlotte. Charlotte, what are your thoughts at the end of this very long and challenging day for Wiltshire Police?
Wiltshire Police have, of course, been under intense scrutiny during the 2 years of this investigation. But I think there's a sense tonight from many people I've spoken to that maybe neither side are fully satisfied by this report. There are those supporters of Sir Edward Heath who hope to see his name cleared, and that really hasn't happened. And on the other side, there are survivors of abuse who maybe wanted this investigation to go much further. The report will now be handed over to the National Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse. But there's a real sense tonight that we may never know the truth as to whether Sir Edward Heath abused children.
OK, Charlotte, thanks very much. Well, thank you for choosing to watch tonight's Points West. David and Liz with you this evening.
And still to come, Room to Care. The actress Caroline Quentin helps launch a massive fundraising appeal for St Peter's Hospice in Bristol.
And double trouble. We meet the teacher learning to cope with 5 sets of twins.
Yes, that's coming your way, but first, a hospital has admitted it contributed to the death of a premature baby by not prescribing antibiotics soon enough. 2 years after a family started a campaign for answers, baby Ben died at Bristol's Children's Hospital in April 2015.
His father, who's kept up a vigil outside the building, has told Points West a sorry from managers isn't enough. Scott Ellis reports.
Ben Condon was born prematurely. He died in 2015, aged just 2 months, after being rushed from his home in Weston-super-Mare to Bristol with a bad cough. Ben Condon wasn't given antibiotics until just over an hour before he died, and his parents argue those antibiotics should have been given out days before. But in June 2016, an inquest ruled that Ben died of a lung inflammation caused by a viral infection, and heard evidence from the trust that antibiotics would not have saved him. Following a reappraisal of the case, the hospital said sorry to the Condons today, telling them the trust believes that it missed an opportunity to provide Ben with timely antibiotics and that this failure contributed to his death. Ben's father, a former Olympic sprinter, has spent months protesting outside the hospital and brought a case for clinical negligence. Today's admission and apology mean compensation, but won't stop his campaign.
I think it would be easy to let go now. You know, I believe that the CEO should hold staff accountable, and I believe that he should be held accountable as well.
The Trust says this has been a complex case because of wide-ranging views amongst medical experts about when antibiotics should be prescribed. In Ben's case, they say it was a genuine error.
The important thing for everybody who uses this hospital is that we learn and we get better.
The Trust's made improvements, including a system in children's intensive care which alerts staff when a dose of antibiotics is due. Ben will continue his vigil outside until there's personal accountability. He and his family consider it an apology 2.5 years too late. Scott Ellis, BBC Points West, Bristol.
An inspection at a children's care home in Somerset has found children living there put themselves in potentially fatal situations. Ofsted found a child got an air rifle and knives from a neighbour's shed and threatened staff and another resident. Crossways Care Limited, which runs the home, says it's working closely with Ofsted and the local authority to improve.
The actress Caroline Quentin is helping a Bristol charity with its final push to fund their biggest redevelopment in 2 decades.
St Peter's Hospice is knocking down its inpatient unit in Brentry this month to build a better one, but they're still short of more than £1.5 million. Michelle Rominski reports.
Make a wish, everybody. We know what that wish is, don't we? It's a wish close to £1.6 million. Okay.
And they've only got 12 months to find it. This inpatient unit closes tomorrow to make way for a new one with a £6.5 million price tag. Every patient will have their own private bedroom, ensuite bathroom and garden terrace. No one will have to share a room anymore.
People will have some quiet time, some peace, some solitude, time to be with just the people they love and out of the kind of maelstrom of a caring place. And that's why this is important.
Pippa, Trudy and Emma were all helped by St Peter's when they said goodbye to their husbands. They know the value of privacy when it's needed most.
When Steve was here, we did have somebody in the other bed who was very near the end of their life. So the boys didn't visit their dad at that point. So to have had a room on our own would have made that time much easier.
Effectively, all of that is going to get levelled.
With more than £1.5 million still to find and the bulldozers about to move in, you'd expect the man in charge to be nervous.
5 years as chief exec has shown me that we're so well supported by the people of Bristol that I have no doubt that everybody understands this is a really important project for us and for the community that we serve, and I'm very confident that we're going to raise that money.
When the new centre is built next year, St Peter's predicts it'll care for more than 6,000 people and their families over the next 20 years. Michelle Rominski, BBC Points West, Bristol.
Well, against all the odds, they did it. Swindon have been crowned 2017 Speedway champions. They came from behind to beat Wolverhampton by a single point in the playoff final last night.
It rounds off a season where they recorded their best ever winning run. Our Wiltshire reporter Will Glennon was there.
As the Swindon riders prepared for action, a difficult task lay ahead. No team had ever come from behind away from home, and the fans knew it. It was going to be a tense evening.
Huge pressure now.
After winning the first race, Swindon began to slip further behind. Maybe the chance was going. There were thrills and spills. With 3 heats left, a fantastic race saw them edge ahead by 1 point. Then they held on for victory.
It means absolutely everything to see them win this time. You know, I've been right behind these boys all season, you know, and they've done a great job.
Unbelievable. To go down to the last heat decide was just incredible. And to get to that position, for the boys to take it to the wire and keep composed, get that win, amazing.
What a night, 1 point, 1 point, just absolutely amazing. And just shows the character of the boys. They've been all year, we've been written off, and every time they just keep coming back and keep coming back.
And for the first time in 50 years, a New Zealand rider was in the winning Swindon team.
The last time that a New Zealander won the title with Swindon was in 1967, so I mean that's pretty massive for me. It's massive for my whole country.
Swindon had finished top of the regular league, including a run of 17 wins. But this is the crowning glory. The 2017 Championship Trophy, a triumph for the whole team to savour. Will Glennon, BBC Points West, Wolverhampton.
Well done them. Now, learning all your pupils' names is the annual challenge for any teacher, and it's particularly tough if you've got twins in the class.
So imagine what it must be like for the staff at a primary school in Bristol. This term, they've welcomed 5 sets of twins into reception. Andy Howard reports.
Getting one 4-year-old ready for school in the morning can tie you in knots. But what about if that job is doubled?
My name's Felix. My name's Judy.
Felix, Rudy, teeth. Come on.
We think we're on time, and then all of a sudden we're running to school, and yeah, when you've got two children learning to do the same things at the same time, there lies the challenge.
And it's a challenge that Hillcrest Primary School has accepted.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, once I got to visualize.
But not just with Felix and Rudy. No, they've got 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of twins, all in reception class.
Oh, who's this?
Mr. Fox.
Mr. Fox. I found Mr. Fox.
No.
That should keep Mrs. Wyatt on her toes.
It comes with its issues. Last week we were painting our self-portraits and I called one twin across to do his picture. Then I called the other twin, who I thought was the other twin, and in fact it was the wrong twin. And it wasn't until halfway through that I realised that the freckle on the cheek meant that I'd got the wrong twin. That's going to happen quite a lot.
5 sets of twins in 1 year is surely a record. Well, it is for the head teacher anyway.
I've had one set of twins in a classroom. I've never had more than that. And in a school, maybe 2 sets of twins. 5 is quite extraordinary.
What's in the water?
Well, exactly. Whatever it is, I'm not going to drink it.
Being a twin means safety in numbers, but it can also be annoying.
What does she do to cause mischief?
She hides upstairs and then and then I have to try and find her, and then she hides in tricky places.
One thing these little ones will always have in common is each other. And that they all started school at Hillcrest Primary all at once. Andy Howard, BBC Points West in Bristol.
Well, at least some of them look quite different, didn't they? Start.
Very sweet.
Yeah. Now, the West Country's apple harvest has been one of the earliest on record. Growers across the region say an unusually mild winter has helped produce a good crop, in some cases weeks earlier than normal.
But it's not all good news, oh no. Unseasonable spring weather also led to some varieties being hit by sharp frost. Our Somerset correspondent Clinton Rogers reports.
They are awash with apples at this cider farm in Somerset. Rich pickings for everyone, it seems. It is the weather, in particular a mild winter, which has meant this year's harvest is earlier than it's ever been.
We had a very dry winter, and from then on everything was early. So some of the blossom that was already in place around the 20th of April, which is quite early, did get a little bit frosted. We didn't get too much damage, but it was early from then on, really.
Well, notwithstanding that early frost, it is a bumper 2017 crop, which is just as well, as here they need to press enough apples to produce 2.5 million litres of cider. That, they say, will not be a problem this year. It is much the same story for eating apples. This 25-acre orchard on the edge of Taunton should still have apples on the trees, but most of the branches are bare now. The picking season came uniquely early, which presented a few problems for the owners.
Beginning of August, the weather turned autumnal and the trees decided it was time to ripen up and produce their apples. We're running our picking gang down now, when normally I'd still have 10 dozen people working here.
But, like the cider orchards, it has at least meant a good crop, even if it was one they weren't quite expecting.
Well, if you've got an apple tree weighed down with fruit and you're wondering what to do with it, stewed apples are always very nice. You could take your apples to one of the numerous community presses that exist across our region and have them turned into juice. That's juice, not cider, by the way, sadly.
And Clinton is at the community press and with a Liscombe for us now. Clinton.
Yes, thanks very much indeed, where they are turning this into this, and people are arriving as we speak with their apples. Come inside and I'll show you how it works. I have to tell you, it is noisy, because over there, I don't think I can get much closer, they're actually milling the apples, and to the left there what they're doing is turning it into the juice. If I get Andy to come around here, look, these are the machines that are actually pasteurising it. It's all a very complicated process, I have to say. Let's meet the man who tonight is in charge, David It is a hive of activity, and well, just tell me the history of this place, how it works.
So, well, it started off many years ago. A group of people from Wiveliscombe sitting in an orchard, watching all the apples drop, and thought, what's happening to these apples? And actually the answer was they were just being wasted. There's loads of apples wasted all over Somerset.
So you set this up, and you not only rent out those presses, you actually get people to come here pretty much every week to bring their spare apples and turn into juice.
Well, that's right. We have the community session every Thursday. We book in people who bring along their garden's worth of apples, and that we put them through the presses, and they go away with 20 or 30 bottles of nicely fresh pasteurised apple juice.
I think they need your help over there, so I'll let you get on with it.
Thank you.
And I've got this to take home with me.
Lucky you, Clinton, lucky you.
That's their job.
Yeah, we must get the weather now, and Ian's up on the roof.
Thanks very much, both. Well, Clinton's report ties in nicely to the fact that the harvest moon, which is the first full moon close to the autumn equinox, is going to be very visible during the course of this evening. Let me take through the forecast then on into tomorrow. With high pressure across us, it's going to be a decent day. It'll be a dry and a settled one. Should be a good deal of sunshine around, certainly for all of us during the course of the morning. Through the afternoon, there will be a bit more cloud around, but we'll find after a chilly start, temperatures recover to about the mid-teens. Wider look at things then shows high pressure building as we head through tonight and on into tomorrow. So for the most part, the winds will be fairly light during the course of Friday, and you can see fronts are being held at bay. They will start to bother us though on Saturday. Well, for the rest of this evening then, still fairly breezy for some of you. As the night wears on, the winds will be falling lighter. It will be a quite chilly night. Certainly if you're away from the coastal fringes, you'll probably find temperatures dropping quite readily in the countryside, at least down towards about mid-single figures, probably 6-7 Celsius being fairly typical as an end result by daybreak tomorrow. So yes, a chilly start on Friday, but offset by a good deal of sunshine around. Should be a very pleasant morning, and indeed continuing similarly so as we head into the afternoon. There will be a bit more cloud being introduced as those hours tick by, but no threat of any rain through the course of Friday, and temperatures ultimately will recover to around about the mid-teens, probably 15 Celsius being fairly typical. Now, I mentioned some rain on the way for Saturday. That'll start to appear as the day progresses through the course of the morning into the afternoon. Those fronts running in, a breezy day for us all, so quite a change compared to Friday. I don't think the amounts of rain are going to be particularly bothersome. Some moderate bursts certainly, but light and drizzly for a good number of you. And then Sunday, by contrast, is looking dry. That's it from me. Back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Ian. You found some sun. What a lovely tan he had.
Doesn't he look good? Not like us. Or what pasty.
Thanks. We're going to leave you there. There's an update for you at 10. Otherwise, the whole team returns tomorrow. So we'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Good night.